Welcome to our Introduction to Clicker Training class. Before we start training, we want to talk a little bit about what is clicker training, what does it mean, and how can we best approach it when first teaching it to our dogs. If you haven't been using clicker training so far, you have probably been training your dog with the training technique luring. It means that we take a treat into our hand, lead the dog's head around with that treat, and the rest of his body will follow. It's very easy to achieve instant success with this method. If, for example, I want my dog to go into a crate, I can take a treat, toss it into the crate, and the dog will immediately go into the crate to eat the treat. Or I can take the treat, hold it high above the dog's head, move it a little bit to the back, and he will sit for me. However, the dog has no idea what he did, and it often takes many repetitions of feeding the cookie until he can perform the behavior reliably without luring or without us making a luring motion with our hands. Luring also does not work for behaviors that are not initiated by head movement. If, for example, I want to teach my dog to give me a high five, or to back up, or to hold an object in his mouth, I cannot achieve this by leading his head around with a cookie. I need some kind of other option to teach him that. And clicker training will give us this option. Clicker training, or shaping, how it's often called, is a trial and error learning method. We can compare it to the human game of guess which person I'm thinking of, in which one person would imagine a person that the other player has to guess. The guessing player would start to approach the right person by asking pretty general questions such as, is it a man or a woman? Is the person still alive? And then slowly zoning in more and more on the correct answer. Clicker training is very similar. We start out with our dog not knowing what we want him to do, and then if he has an idea that goes even remotely into the correct direction, we can reinforce him and hope that he will have another similar idea. It is important that we do not use any coaxing, luring, or initiating from our side to make our dog behave a certain way. It will only confuse him. We want him to understand that it is his turn to think and figure things out all by himself. Now, what does the clicker have to do with all of this? The clicker is just a tool that we're going to use to precisely mark the moment that the correct behavior happens. You can think of it like a snapshot. The clicker is a button with which you're going to capture what your dog is doing right. And then we're going to follow it up by a treat. It's very important that you never break this promise. If you're going to click, you need to follow it by a treat. The clicker is going to teach the dog to be aware of his actions, to be very much in the moment and realize what he is doing so that when we have clicked and rewarded him, he will repeat it in order to earn another treat. So let's get started with our first exercise.